Welcome back to Clinic Mindset, the show where strategy meets care and where we explore how clinic leaders grow without losing sight of what matters, people, quality, and outcomes. I am your host, Dr. Edisa Shirley, Chief Growth Strategy Officer at ClinicMind, and today I am absolutely thrilled to welcome someone that I love and respect a lot. I work very closely with her, but also someone who has dedicated her career to making healthcare better through operational excellence. Kelli Mercer. So Kelli has a deep experience leading operations across very complex multi-specialty organizations, driving workflow innovation, supporting providers, aligning different systems so practices can scale efficiently and compassionately. So Kelli, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And so just to kind of kick us off, do you want to tell us a little bit what drew you to working with multi-specialty practices and what excites you the most about this space? And you can also tell us a little bit more about what you do now, who you work for, and what you guys are working on right now.
You know, what drew me to it, I like the idea of a kind of a one-stop shop, right? Where the patient can come in, they can see, in my case, I work in a large mental health practice, they can see the psychiatrist, they can see a therapist, they can get testing done, TMS, all of those services, or have a link to even, a higher level of care if needed. And in our case, we work with a hospital organization. And so our providers also work with the local IOP, PHP, and inpatient program. So really to be able to link those patients with all the services they need to be successful, be that they need to step up to inpatient, they need to come back down to, IOP, then back out to, regular outpatient therapy and med management. So all of those services and really being able to get that patient plugged in exactly where they need to go in the moment they need it. Really always been a passion of mine and something that makes me feel good, not only as an employee, but as a person, right? Because we're all in the business to help patients and people. And so I feel like it's a great way to meet that my own personal need, but also again, the needs of our community. I work currently for Wellstead Mental Health. We are a large outpatient mental health program here in the Tallahassee area. So we are a mental health organization that was founded here in Tallahassee with a couple of psychiatry offices that wanted to join together and then expand healthcare here across the state of Florida. So we just opened an office in Orlando. We're opening an office in Sarasota next week, and we're offering psychiatry services, therapy services, testing, TMS, the whole range of services. And then again, we are linked with an inpatient program and a psychiatry residency program as well. So again, it's just really great to be able to be a part of a growing organization that also is working to meet the needs of patients. So it's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And I know you've been a rock star and big driving force behind all of that. So, but in multi-specialty operation, they're really not for the faint of heart. There's a lot going on. I mean, even just in what you just explained, there's quite a bit that is happening behind the scene. Can you tell me a little bit more about why do these practices face unique challenges compared to, for example, single specialty groups?
Sure. So, when you think about, you've got different workflows, you've got different prior authorization rules, you've got different appointment lengths. Scheduling alone can be a bit complex when you factor in you've got new patient appointments for an hour to an hour and a half, and then med checks are, 30 minutes, and then therapy appointments are 15 minutes, and then testing, of course, can be multiple hours. And so it's complex in the sense because of the different specialties and the needs of those specialties, and it can create bottlenecks. It can, make intake and scheduling a bit of a nightmare. And then when you factor in wait lists and patient needs and then urgent patient appointments, it can a bit of again, as you said, kind of a complex issue. And there's a lot of moving parts at all times.
Yeah, and probably culture as well.
Correct.
About having multiple locations, and I know that is only across Florida now, but you guys do have locations in more suburb areas versus city, and I'm sure that probably poses additional challenges as you're working with people, right? Yes, absolutely. Especially when you work in mental health too. There's always the dynamic of just people in general, right? And people are unpredictable. And then when you factor in, we here in Tallahassee are so close to the state line of Georgia. So you also run into some of those scenarios as well, where you've got patients that live in Georgia and then trying to make sure they're able to get in person to their appointments, things like that. So it definitely makes it a little more complex. And let's talk solutions. What are some of the proven strategies for streamlining operations across let's say, different specialties?
I think centralized scheduling has made a huge difference, at least for our organization, for us to be able to schedule. Again, we mentioned we've got a couple of new offices, between Tallahassee, Orlando, and Sarasota. To be able to have one intake scheduling department is making a huge difference. One of my roles here is to uplift and oversee our intake department. And so my team schedules appointments, new patient appointments for the whole corporation. And so I think that has been extremely helpful. We've grown our new patient scheduling tremendously since we lifted the intake department off the ground a few months ago. Huge difference in terms of being able to get patients in faster and more efficiently. So certainly centralized scheduling definitely makes a big difference in terms of optimizing that, right? And then simple, workflows and EMR systems, having that one EMR system for all specialties versus just, one for med management, one for therapy, one for TMS, right? Having that EMR system that all specialties are able to utilize makes for better patient care, because the psychiatrist and the therapist and the TMS technician can all look at one system, one record, one chart, and be able to utilize that information versus having to look in multiple sources, right? And then it also helps the patient in the sense that they are not having to repeat their story 3 different times necessarily, right? And the same information. So certainly that makes a big difference as well. Let you standardize those workflows, which makes everyone's life a little bit easier.
Yeah, and also, and I think you mentioned that unified technology really helps having that coordination and reduces redundancy, asking the same questions multiple times, right? And
correct. And yeah, better workflows in general make everyone's life a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, and really that enhances patient care, which is really patient experience, which is probably the most important part of all this. So, and even when the technology is right, culture, as I mentioned earlier, can make or break that execution. What leadership or cultural shifts help align diverse clinical teams under one operational vision?
Yeah, so I think trying to shift the culture to, instead of, my caseload versus, our panel or our patient group, right? And trying to help the clinicians and the team in general understand, that it's one organization, one panel of patients versus just my patients, right? And even as, here locally with WellSaid, we merged 2 large established practices. And then so trying to help the 2 different offices who have always been 2 separate entities to understand, this is our group and our organization versus just my team and your team, right? And so certainly that's been a bit of a challenge, and part of my role here is to also work with marketing and growing the brand. And so it's one of my goals is to really try to help the team understand, that no, we're now WellSaid and we are one organization and one team. And so I think it's really coming together well, and it's been a nice transition to be able to help everybody get on the same kind of mindset and growth mindset of, we are one program, we are one team, and these are our patients, not your patients, right? And so having those shared goals, engagement, and just everybody's aligned with let's make patients' lives better.
And you do have an amazing team. I can vouch for that. But I know this answer probably, but I'll ask you to tell a little bit more, talk about how do you foster buy-in from the clinicians with different training backgrounds? I know you have some amazing clinicians working with you, but tell us a little bit just about strategies on how can someone get a good buy-in from clinicians when you're going through change and when you are trying to.
Yeah, so that's a tough one. And I think sometimes it depends on the subject matter, right? So is it, the EMR system versus scheduling versus, different components? And some obviously have stronger feelings about some than others, right? So I think it depends. And it certainly depends on the clinician themselves too. So really just, working with my clinical leadership team has been really, really important to, and fortunately they're obviously really bought into the idea of trying to remind the clinicians of, we're all here to help patients.
Kelli, if a leader wants to track both operational efficiency and care quality, what metrics or KPIs should they pay most attention to?
Yeah, so, in terms of metrics on the clinical side of things, I'm looking, at no-show rates. I'm looking at making sure the notes are signed off on in an appropriate amount of time, testing completion rates, treatment episodes, things like that, right? Making sure the patients are coming to their appointment, which obviously makes a big difference in terms of their ability to succeed with their treatment and to recover, right? The financial side of it, and clinically, I'm looking at, number of referrals that we've got coming in. I'm looking at completion rates. I'm looking at how many referrals are referral sources, where are those coming in. I'm looking at denials and things of that nature, per patient revenue, TMS utilization, schedule utilization, documentation timeliness.
Yeah, no, those are some really good metrics. I think some of the really important ones that you mentioned in the beginning, no-show rates, right? That can tell us a lot. If a patient is not showing up, it can be so many different things. It can be an EMR, appointment reminder. Was it sent? Was it not sent? Was the appointment scheduled? Did the intake team do what they were supposed to do? And then also on the other side is patient, what is in patient's treatment plan? Does this patient is he benefiting from coming in? If it depends, it's a therapy or med management. So I think just that first one that you mentioned, no-show rate, can tell us a lot.
Yes.
And then some of the other metrics, of course, note completion. If provider completing their notes, it does show a good clinical care. So those being audited, being reviewed constantly to make sure that they're matching to what the diagnosis is of a patient, what patient actually needs. So you highlighted a really good one. And then some more common metrics that we have, in financials, which we know Ken is probably interested in. We absolutely love Ken, don't we? Well, so looking ahead, how do you see AI, interoperability, and value-based care shaping the future of multi-specialty?
That's a great question. It's funny. I've seen, and kind of looking around the way different companies do things to see how, what takeaways that we can potentially use as we grow our company. I've seen a lot of AI usage with scheduling. And I have personally some mixed feelings on that. I think when you're trying to schedule a new patient, they're calling in, maybe they're afraid to call the psychiatry office, right? They're afraid to be seen. They're a little self-conscious about it, right? And so I really value that human connection. And I tell my staff regularly that, remember, this is not a fun phone call for most of these patients. They're a little nervous, right? And so I think it's important that we sound genuine. And I feel like AI doesn't always feel that way, especially when, it's the search bots and the type bots where you're typing in, like, what would you like to be seen for today, right? I feel like it feels a little impersonal. However, I do think that is going to continue to become more of a trend, right? And so again, I really value the human connection. I think the patients, when I take phone calls personally, because I like to continue to keep kind of my hand in that periodically and try to help out my team. And I feel like the human connection is so important. And so my hope is that it doesn't completely take over as an industry. Although, again, I think it will become more prevalent. I think that AI will be useful in potentially, though, like no-show predictions, for example, or benefit checks. Certainly, we've seen it within, drafting documentation to providers during meetings. I think that's becoming a pretty strong standard in the clinical world, even in the hospital setting. And so that has some benefits as well. It frees up the clinicians to focus obviously more on complex decisions and relationships and things like that. And, helps them to work more efficiently. But it allows them also to take in, calculating patient risk and things like that as well. So, so I definitely see some benefits there for sure.
Yeah. And I agree with you on that one. I think with AI, it's scary, right? Artificial intelligence, people are kind of scared of it. But really what we have seen on the technology side, it's an assistant. It does not replace a provider, does not replace that warm hand that some patients need. But what it does, it helps provider do what providers don't feel like doing.
Yes.
And so we have seen AI helps with coding, and we know providers hate coding. It also helps with billing, reviewing errors that humans just, they can't catch everything. So being able to help with billing, help with some of those tedious tasks that most people really don't want to do, or if they do it, there's an error behind it. And also help providers with some of the note taking. We know that some of the old school ones, they still like to kind of work on their own notes and really work on shaping those. But the newer providers understand that if there's a tool that can help them write a comprehensive, compliant note, that is actually saving time in their day, and they can see more patients, or they can actually work earlier. So provide that work-life balance.
Who wants to do that, Edisa?
I don't know. It'll be nice, right? As we're recording this on a Friday. But, and just a final question for you, Kelli.
Yes.
If you could give one piece of advice to a leader looking to optimize their multi-specialty practice, what it would be?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a tough one. And I've thought about this. I think, having that concept of, like one front door, one routing logic, one data view really would make a difference, right? One front door, the patient doesn't have to call 16 different phone numbers in order to get where they need to go. I really feel like that is it's great for the patient because, again, it's one phone call, and it's great for the program and for the organization because they don't have to worry about that, complex phone trees. They don't have to worry about how's the patient going to get where they need to go. I think that really operationally will make a huge difference. I feel like it's made a huge difference for our organization, and so I feel like that's a great first step in operational efficiency.
That's a really good advice. Well, Kelli, it has been such a rich conversation. It's been a pleasure. It's always great seeing you, catching up with you.
Absolutely.
And I know our listeners will take so much from your insights, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us. But to everyone tuning in, thank you for joining another episode of Clinic Mindset. If you found this helpful, make sure to rate, review, and share with a colleague. Until next time, bye.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
ClinicMind, your all-in partner for practice success.